Hello everybody, this is Tim Long, one half of Horror Movie Yearbook, here with your horror hotline for Monday, August 13th, 2018. Hey, hope everybody had a great weekend. I did have a very good weekend. I saw The Meg, which automatically means it was a great weekend, a win for me. Yeah, hope everybody had a good weekend. You can check out, we did a little bit of rearranging of our website. You can check it out at horrormovieyearbook.com. We also put out our latest episode on David Cronenberg's The Brood on Friday. That should be in your feed on iTunes, Stitcher, whatever the other ones are that I'm blanking on right now. That should be in your feed right now. It's Willie and I getting together for an hour talking about The Brood. We are going to be working on a commentary episode coming up soon. I know the Game Nerds have put together an episode, I believe, on Dead Cells that should be out now. The Preacher Podcast, Gone to Texas, should have one out now. So yeah, exciting stuff. Busy weekend for everybody. Busy weekend at the box office. Let's go over some results real quick before we jump into the Castle Rock review today. The Meg debuted at number 1 this weekend with $44.5 million. Most projections I saw before the weekend had it making about half of that. I think I saw 20 to 25 million maybe. Not only did Meg beat projections here, but overseas it pulled in 97 million and made 50 million from China, where it came in third place. And I'll have some more information on that tomorrow. I just read a really interesting article. Basically, the second place Chinese movie over there is like cooking the books. Like they're buying tickets to make it look better. Chinese box office, very fascinating. So I'll be back tomorrow with a little bit more information on the Meg. I'm going to review it, talk about it, and talk about its production. It has a pretty interesting production history too. It's been in the works for 20 years. So, but it pulled in 50 million from China. And China, if you've seen the movie, is like an integral part of the film. It's a co-produced movie, kind of like The Great Wall or Skyscraper, co-produced with China. So worldwide, the Meg stands after one weekend, $141 million, which is good. Audience liked it well enough to they gave it a B+ cinema score. Critics were mixed on it. I'm sure it will have a hefty drop next week, but this is a good start for a $170 million budgeted movie. $170 million is crazy, and being in production for 20 years, it probably costs way more than that. It's a surprising amount because it's double projections, but it's kind of a perfect August style horror action movie. Shark movies have been pretty solid at the box office for the past couple of years. So yeah, it shouldn't really be a surprise, but it kind of is. Mission Impossible Fallout was second place, bringing in 20 million, up to 162 million after 2 weeks. And The Slender Man was the other wide release horror movie this weekend. Pulled in a decent $11.3 million, which was about maybe on the higher end of some projections. I saw from 8 to 60. Nobody really had a guess on it. Most critics and horror writers seem to not have liked it, but hey, if Gotti taught me anything, it's that critics don't matter. What matters is the people. And they gave it a D-, but that's not an F. So not bad for The Slender Man. And so once again, yeah, I saw Meg. I'll be back with more on the movie and its box office tomorrow. Let's jump into Castle Rock, Episode 5. Castle Rock, Episode 5. You can check out my other reviews. I have posted reviews, recaps. This is Episode 5, The Harvest. Or just Harvest. No the there. I want to also, real quick before I get started, thank you to the Castle Rock Wikia editor, whoever you may be, for helping me put things in order. So yeah, thank you very much there. All right, so we open in 2016 where Henry Deaver is having an MRI because of incessant ringing in his ears. The doctors tested his memory and his brain is examined, but they can find nothing wrong with him. The doctor says, "I guess everybody thinks they grew up in the worst place on earth, huh?" The writing here is alluding to Castle Rock, by the way, if you didn't pick up on that. Henry was previously suffering from the ringing of his ears as a teenager. 2 years later, now born in Castle Rock, Maine, the ringing returns. While Henry is brought in to take a look at his father's casket, that's when the ringing comes back, his casket has been affected by something called exploding casket syndrome. So basically, real quick aside here, exploding casket syndrome sounded way too amazing to me to not Google search. I did that for a while. Here is an article I pulled from the Washington Post, and I'm just flat out going to read it here. It's called "What You Should Know About Exploding Caskets," and this is from the Washington Post, and it was published 4 years ago now in 2014. Like I said, I'm just going to read it because this is an amazing way to start your Monday. Now heavily marketed to ordinary Americans as the cleaner and classier alternative to 6 Feet Under, community mausoleums, with their rows of concrete vaults, appeal to grieving relatives grossed out at the thought of bugs, water, and worms mingling with their loved ones' remains. But dead bodies have a tendency to rot, and when they do so above ground, the consequences are, to put it nicely, unpleasant. Separating the living from the dead with nothing more than a thin concrete wall was destined to fail, and the funeral industry is making money off of public ignorance. Funeral homes push pricey caskets for above-ground burials that ultimately exacerbate mausoleums' inherent flaw. You've never heard of exploding casket syndrome, but funeral directors and cemetery operators have. They sell so-called protective or sealer caskets at a premium worth hundreds of dollars each, and the promise that they'll keep out air and moisture that they would have you believe cause bodies to rapidly deteriorate. Like Tupperware for the dead, they lock in the freshness with a rubber casket. But in reality, you can't protect a corpse from itself. While you're insulating grandma from the outside air, she could be stewing in her own fluids, turning into a slurry from the work of anaerobic bacteria. When the weather turns warm, in some cases, that sealed casket becomes a pressure cooker and bursts from accumulated gases and fluids of the decomposing body. The next time relatives visit grandma, they could find her rotting remains from her tube in the form of a nauseating thick fluid. Sorry, it was tough to get through that because whoever wrote it did a phenomenal job. So there you go. There's a quick update on what exactly exploding casket syndrome is. It's a real thing. So it's a real disgusting thing. You could Google image search it. There aren't a lot of good pictures of it on the internet. I was kind of curious and I looked. I'll just be honest with you. But yeah, make sure there are plenty of other great articles on it. Make sure to do your own research. So anyway, back to the show. As wildfires rage in the surrounding counties, Henry installs a security system in Ruth Deaver's home so he can monitor her. This will play a role later in the show. I have something similar to this. It's called a Furbo. It monitors my dog while my fiance and I are away. It shoots treats at her when you push a button in the app. This is a similar concept, what he's got going here, without the treat shooting feature, which could be probably demeaning. Anyway, we cut back to the prisoner who is watching a video about adjusting to life on parole before leaving Shawshank to talk to Henry outside of the prison. Henry asks for his name, and then bam, we're at the opening credits finally, and he doesn't get a chance to answer. I don't know his name, the prisoner, the kid. I don't have a theory. I'll say Ralph Flagg, maybe something like that. Knowing the show, they like to name people after books. We are back from the credits and 2 Keegan-Michael Key commercials during this episode. One for back-to-back. One for a mortgage company and one for the Predator movie that's coming out. And we see now that we're back, we see a flashback of the old Warden Lacey talking to the prisoner, the kid, about building an ark and rambling kind of about faith and how he looks while the prisoner is locked in a cell. He says, after all these years, I don't know who you are or if I did the right thing. And then he takes off his glove and brushes the prisoner's cheek. If you remember last week, before Zalewski went on his rampage, he bumped fists with the kid. In this scene, Lacey removes his gloves that he had on before he brushes the prisoner's cheek. So obviously, physical contact, it's pretty much confirmed in this episode. Physical contact with the kid affects people in a negative way because Lacey, I believe right after this meeting, would proceed to kill himself. Since the kid cannot be sent straight to Juniper Hill Asylum, Henry, feeling responsible for his well-being, arranges for him to stay in a room above Molly Strand's office. We're then back with Alan Pangborn as he drives back to Ruth's house after presumably a long day of just being grizzled in his pickup, probably. And it's becoming clear that whatever is affecting Ruth is not exactly memory loss. On his first night out, we're back with the kid now. The kid leaves the place he was staying and enters the house of a family celebrating a birthday. As he watches them, the love shown by the family turns into anger, violence. They start screaming at each other and turning on each other. A lot of it happens off screen while the kid looks on. This is a really, really great scene. Disturbing, messed up, and sad. It's obviously the kid's presence has an effect on the people. I'm still unclear on whether or not he can control it. It seems like he might be able to. I've also seen some speculation that this may be a memory of sorts, that he's visiting somehow. He's somehow traveled, like we're in his mind, I guess. I kind of preferred that explanation to him affecting this family. Either way, though, the scene was very, very affecting. Very effective. Back with Alan and Ruth, for a quick scene where he buys her the most romantic gift in the world, a chess set made by Vikings. She loves it, of course. Who wouldn't? I will say this, there are a couple of really sweet scenes between the two in this episode. I like their relationship a lot. It's nice to see two older people in love on TV. I like these stories, especially when it's two older folks finding love after loss and tragedy. It's one of the things I like about King's book, Insomnia. I get similar feelings with this couple as I did with the couple in that. Next, we're with Jackie as she's walking through the empty apartment where the prisoner was last night. The prisoner enters the room while she's laying on the bed looking at a switchblade, and he's completely naked. We get a full-on Skarsgard butt shot for those who are into that. At the same time, Castle Rock is honoring Alan Pangborn by naming a bridge after him. He does not seem excited about this, by the way. During the dedication ceremony, a barking dog scares Ruth into jumping off the bridge. Henry jumps in after her mother, and she survives. He saves her. Maybe this was a Cujo Easter egg. I haven't read the book. I've only seen the movie. I don't know. There's sometimes translation between the book and movie and King books. I don't know if Cujo in the book is some sort of like telepathic dog whose barks are translated into people's brains and tells Ruth to. Maybe he's a relative of Cujo. I don't know. Are these Cujo's powers? Who knows? Molly arrives back at the apartment where the naked kid and Jackie just were, but aren't anymore. Jackie Torrance has taken the kid out in her car so she can smoke weed, listen to Wolf Like Me by TV on the radio, and tell him that she wants the crazy days of Castle Rock that she's heard about, the ones with killer dogs and such. Well, you may have your wish. As she tells the kid she had an uncle who flipped his lid one winter and tried to axe his wife and kid at a fancy ski resort. This, of course, is a reference to Maximum Overdrive. No, it's The Shining. Jackie goes on to add that she took her uncle's name, Jack, to piss people in her family off. She explains that her real name is Diane. So yeah, we get our first idea of who Jackie Torrance is. I think this is the first time we find out that she's related to Jack from The Shining. There have been some allusions towards it, especially with Molly's character, with the shine and everything. We'll probably get a little bit more on that. I'm hoping we get a little bit more on Jackie in the further episodes. Yeah, no, this reminded me of my college days, not the taking the naked man into my car or the taking of a new name, but the TV on the radio album that was playing in the background and the weed. That was a really good album. Henry and Alan are with Ruth in the hospital, and she says, quote, "It was the damn dog that made her jump." This is also where she reveals her memories are still there, but she cannot put them in order. She explains it's like reading a book with the pages rearranged. Molly rushes to the old shirt factory in town to find Jackie and to find the kid standing on top of the building and hearing the violent happenings in town. Molly is able to communicate with him in some way here. Henry enters the house to find Molly waiting in the dark, kind of like a total creep. She explains how everyone in town broadcasts at their own frequency, but with him, it's like she was listening to the pain of everyone in the town all at once. The kid, that is. The kid enters the house, and Henry tells him to stay for the night. I'm sure that's a great idea. Henry walks him to a small house, kind of cabin on the property with a pull-out bed. The prisoner starts playing the piano very well. Molly has the shine, which is the King's version of telepathy and scene in The Shining and Dr. Sleep. I'm interested to see how this ties in with Jackie, if it does at all. We're with Alan now as he's just getting ripped downtown, and he drunkenly tears off his memorial plate off the bridge and chucks it in the water because he likes to party. And when he takes out his phone and he starts screwing around in his home security app because he's drunk and wants to check it out, Alan sees an image of the kid in Ruth's home. This pisses him off, so Alan tracks the kid down in the woods. He confronts him. We jump back to a flashback 27 years previously. Pangborn stops Warden Lacey for speeding. He finds the kid in Lacey's trunk, and we learn that the kid has not aged a day. Alan asks him if he is the devil, but the kid says no. Then he says he can help her, meaning Ruth. And then that's it. We're at the end. Scott Glenn continues to kick ass on this show. My entire house smelled like whiskey and cigarettes after this episode. Just a phenomenal performance. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Good episode. Not as good as last week's, but we get some solid information on the kid here. I think it's pretty much confirmed that his touch can harm in this episode. Maybe his presence as well. How much he can or wants to control it, I think is still a little up in the air. He seems to be able to control it because we see him refuse to shake hands with Henry in this episode. I'd have to go back to the other episodes and watch and see how he interacts. But when he's released from prison, Henry goes to shake his hand and the kid refuses, so I'm guessing he knows and he can control. The Jackie Torrance stuff is also intriguing, but there isn't much to it yet. I'm betting there will be. You don't cast Jane Levy like that unless you do have a little bit of a meatier part for it. So we're about halfway through the episode. I think we'll get a little bit more background on Jackie coming up here soon. I also like that we got a couple of nice sweet scenes between Scott Glenn and Sissy Spacek and their characters to just kind of add a little bit more emotional weight to the story. I don't know if necessarily we've got that yet, and I thought we started to between that couple here. And I like their relationship quite a bit. So yeah, decent episode. Good episode of Castle Rock. Enjoying the show still. I will probably keep reviewing these every Monday. I usually get a chance to watch them on the weekend, and it's fun for me to sit down and recap them. Tomorrow, though, I will be back with my review / recap / analysis / history of production on The Meg. I checked it out. It's a very goofy movie. So, not an extremely goofy movie, but a very goofy movie. So, I'll be back tomorrow with that. Once again, make sure to check out all our other podcasts on the Midwest Podcast Network. You can donate to our Patreon, patreon.com/MidwestPodNet. You can donate for as little as $1 a month. That's it for today. Thank you, seriously, everybody, for listening. I will be back tomorrow with my review of The Meg. Take care, everybody.